Hello, this is going to be an introduction to Microsoft 365. And so this is for people who are coming from a Google environment or maybe just have never been exposed to these tools before. And I don't think there's a lot of things out there that just give you a real high level where to find stuff. And so I'm going to do that here, and then I'm going to give maybe some tips and explain a few things that hopefully help you get acclimated to all the tools and the things you can do here. So most likely, if you're starting at a company, you probably are already logged into the environment, and you'll just come in and you'll see probably an intranet, like a SharePoint environment, and then you can go to the app launcher and get to the various tools from there. But I'm going to start here at office.com just so that if that's not the case for you, you can always start at office.com and sign in from there. So I'm going to go ahead and click sign in. So this is the environment I use, so I've signed in before, obviously. So it already knows my email and my password here, but you would just put those things in if this was the first time you were doing it. And so I have two-factor authentication on here, so I'm just going to approve this on my phone. And then I should get logged in, and then we can start looking at the environment. So here we are. So this is the landing page for Office, and it's kind of nice here because it can show you the things that you've recently been in. And so if you don't remember exactly what something was named or where it was, you could come in here and check out what you've already been in and get to that easily. The thing I really want to focus on here is the app launcher in the upper left-hand corner here. And so this is going to be where all of your Microsoft 365 applications are, all of the web-based applications, I should say, because a lot of these do have a corresponding local desktop version of the application. And really, if that is the case, it's usually best to work in the desktop version of the application because it's fully functioning, and there might be some features that are not available in the web-based version of the app. And I will say, though, that there are some apps here that are fully just cloud-based apps. So if you can think of the traditional Office applications like Excel and Word and Outlook, PowerPoint, those are going to be also on your local computer here. And you can get to that, using the search button here. You can go to PowerPoint, and that'll be the app on your computer, and that'll open up the full version. So like I have Word open down here already, and you can see this is the fully versioned Microsoft Word. There's other applications here. The cloud-based apps are going to be things like Power Apps, Power Automate. So Power Apps is your form tool. Power Automate is a workflow and automation tool. That's probably a little bit advanced if you're just getting started here. But you also have things like SharePoint, Teams. Teams is another one that is an application that's going to be local, and they really encourage you to use the local version. And you can think of Teams as there's a lot of things in Teams. It's a chat. It's where you can do video calls. It's where a lot of people are now doing all of their video calls. So you can think of it as a Zoom and also a chat application. But there's also, if I just open it up here, I'll spend a little time on this because it is so popular now. But you can see you have chat here. You have a calendar where you can create, and this is synced up with your Outlook calendar. And you can also do calls here. But if you look, you'll have team sites here, and within your team site, you'll have things like files and posts, so you can do conversations here, and people can comment on your posts. You can also add tabs here, so you can connect this up with SharePoint and a whole host of other applications. So you can see all these various apps that you can use in this environment here. So really popular, and probably something that you're going to be using, and that's really something where you start with the desktop version and go from there. But it's also available here, and you can go to the web-based version here if you want to. And that's going to open up here. And I'm just going to go back over here. So I want to just spend a little bit of time also talking about OneDrive, because that's probably something that you're going to be using. And so OneDrive, you can think of as like a Dropbox. It's a place to store files that are really meant for you or maybe one other person. And it's so anything you do in Word or PowerPoint and you want to save it to your OneDrive so that it's backed up in the cloud, and also so that you have access to it. Let's say something happens to your computer. You want to be able to get into a new computer and be able to sign into your 365 environment and be able to access these files. And so you can do that here. And so if you sync this down, you'll have a local copy of these files. And if I open this up, you can see you'll have a link here in your File Explorer. You can go in there, you'll see all the files that are in there. And so right now, this is in the cloud. So if I want this to have an actual local version of this, I need to double click on it. It's going to download it. And so now you can see the check mark there. And now there's also a local copy of this. And so that's just something to be aware of. And what's nice here is this is going to automatically save it for you. So any changes you make, say test again, it's going to automatically save that for you, and you don't have to worry about doing the save there. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And so if I wanted to work on this now locally, let's say I didn't even have an internet connection, I could do that because I have this local copy. And so that's going to get synced back up to my files here, and so I'll have a copy of it. So it's just a real nice tool to make sure that you don't lose any of your files and you keep track of the work you're doing. You can also share this. So if I go here, I can share this with a colleague or a coworker, and they'll get a link to this. So it's easy to do that, which is nice. This is essentially a SharePoint document library, and we can look at SharePoint real quickly. SharePoint is most likely where your intranet's going to be. And so if you click on it, you'll see the various sites that you have access to. And so you can see all these. If I want to follow something, I can click on it to follow it or unfollow it. So you might, your team or your larger department may have a SharePoint site here where they have a bunch of information that'll help you. So this is something you can come in and check out. You can also create a site here if, let's say, you're leading a team and you want to create your own SharePoint environment. So SharePoint's a nice place to store documents or create document libraries that are going to be useful for a whole bunch of people, and you want a whole bunch of people to have access to that. So that's one potential use case. The other thing in SharePoint is you can create kind of mini apps utilizing SharePoint, Power Apps, and Power Automate, and those apps would most likely live in a SharePoint site. So SharePoint, basically a place where you can create websites within your organization. So I'm sure that you'll probably have some interaction with that. And so the main thing I want to get across here is that if someone is like, oh, I got a SharePoint site, go check it out. Well, go to that app launcher, then you can click on SharePoint, and then generally you're going to be able to find where that is. And, so there's Planner here as well. So Planner is another one where you can create plans, which are basically just a group of tasks. And so if you had a project, you could create a planner and you could create a bunch of tasks for that particular plan. And so there's this cool board here where you can add tasks, and then you can add new buckets and all kinds of stuff like that. But Planner is something I think that's becoming more popular, and you'll probably see more of that. But there is just a ton of stuff in this 365 environment, so you're not going to know all of it backwards and forwards. But if I was going to say to focus on something, it would probably be, your standard Office user is going to be heavily using Excel and Word and PowerPoint, right? But knowing OneDrive and having your files backed up in OneDrive is nice. knowing SharePoint is good, and that Teams, you're going to be doing a ton of work in Teams, so maybe focus on those things if you're just getting started in Microsoft 365. I think you'll get a lot of use out of those tools. And then as you get more comfortable, you can kind of work your way into some of these other applications. The people one I've used quite a bit, so if you're looking for someone in the organization and maybe you just know their first name, this is a good place to search here. This is based off the Outlook app, but it's basically just Outlook/people here. And then you can search. You can also find groups and distribution lists here in this search. So if I want to find myself, I could do that. It's going to pull this up. It's going to give me contact information, but it's also going to give you the organization, which is cool because then you can see who their boss is. You can see maybe files that they're working on. These would be files that you also have access to, so either shared with you or public to everybody in the organization. And so I hope this is helpful in allowing you to kind of more easily navigate through the environment, and helpful in knowing that you have these applications here, and these are the web-based apps, but you're also going to have those apps locally on your computer. And you're most likely, for the apps that are available on the computer, you're probably going to use the ones on the computer because they're more, it's the full version. There are, though, apps here that are just web-based apps like SharePoint and Power Apps and some of these other things. So you're not going to have a version on the desktop. You'll have to get to those through here. And so just knowing that, I think, can be helpful. So I hope that you have a nice time navigating around here and getting used to these tools. And I will talk to you later. Thanks.